What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for March 24th, 2023. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. I guess let's start with the obvious bad news first. Not good news for Mr. Hoskins. He tore his ACL. From what I was hearing yesterday, I haven't heard like a new update today, but it definitely was torn. I was hearing he might need to have it reconstructed, which I don't know. I've heard different things from different people sometimes. Sometimes it's better if things break completely and they have to put them back together. It's a better recovery. I don't know. It's not a good news for the Phillies, especially since obviously you're going to miss his production on the field. And like it or not, I mean, he was a very streaky player. He when he's hot, he is hot. When he's cold, he's cold. But he was a big part of that playoff run. Played a big role in the NLDS against the Braves with his home run and everything. But we're going to miss his leadership. He was here before all of those free agents came in. So he was here before Harper, Schwarber, Turner, Castellanos, all those guys. So that's what we're probably going to miss the most with him being out for, I would imagine, at this point, at least this year. He may not be back with the Phillies. I mean, he was on a one-year deal, sort of trying to get that big payday. So we may have seen the last of Rhys Hoskins for the Phillies. Never know. Obviously, wish him the best. Everything happened right before I was getting ready to record yesterday for Back to the Future. So there is a new Back to the Future up. It's Phillies Preview. Be sure to go check that out wherever you get your podcast. Like and subscribe. Tell somebody to check it out as well. Didn't necessarily flow and go the way I expected it to. For obvious reasons, I had sort of my notes. Everything was kind of laid out and how I wanted it to run. And then, boom, the Rhys Hoskins news. So definitely a good listen. I'm not going to give you any spoilers. Go listen, see what I think. I did adjust my thinking somewhat, but not good news here in Philly land. Sticking with the Phillies, there is one other thing that came up yesterday, and I hate when stuff like this happens, but apparently Bryce Harper was disrespected because he was only ranked 58 on the top 100 players. And like, I hate these lists. I hate these lists, and as somebody who does a podcast, who needs things to talk about, obviously I get it. Everybody's talking about it now. It's a topic of conversation. Hell, I'm even talking about it right now. But at the end of the day, who cares? Like, I mean, and it's for entertainment, but people, like, I get you can have the debate about it. Like, I like having the debates. Like, yesterday we talked about the best athlete in Philly, whether it's Harper. I like the debates. It's fine. But the anger that I see on Twitter, like, geez, people, calm down. Like, it's fine. And I think and I don't want to get into this long-winded thing, but I think it's basically a microcosm of what's going on in the world today. You can't disagree with somebody because now they're offended and now we're going to fight. No, like, what happened to the days where you could just have a debate, grab a beer, and just talk about it? Do I think he's the 58th best? No, he's probably top 15 worst, probably top 10, maybe even top 5, depending on how healthy he comes back. But that's all fun of it. Have a debate. Like, people, the anger on Twitter, jeez, man. It's springtime, spring training. We're supposed to represent the rebirth and newness and this. And calm down. It's a list that somebody made. Relax. It's not the end of the world. All right? All right, so let's go to today's Philly Sports Women's History Spotlight. Today we're going to spotlight Claire Smith. Claire was a Langhorne native, graduate of Neshaminy High, went to Penn State and Temple, where she was a journalism major. Had a love for baseball that came from her mom. She credits her a lot for getting her to really fall in love with the game of baseball. She got her first job at the Bucks County Courier-Times. From there, she moved on. She covered the Yankees for the Hartford Courant from 1983 to 1987. She was the first female beat writer in Major League Baseball. Just kind of sucks that she covered the Yankees and it was like a really shitty era of Yankees baseball, but I digress. She did make it up to the New York Times where she was a columnist, not a columnist, Jesus. Columnist. I'm fired up about the anger about Bryce Harper, for the love of God. Relax, people. You got me worked up. So Claire Smith went to the New York Times and became a columnist. And eventually she came home to the Philadelphia Inquirer, where she worked as a columnist and an editor from 1998 to 2007. I followed and read her regularly as in the Daily News as she came, or the Inquirer as she came home. And then there was that weird period where the Inquirer and Daily News started to combine. But definitely enjoyed her intake or insights and takes on things. She did win the J.G. Taylor Spink Award from the Baseball Writers Association of America. They do a nice little Hall of Fame or ceremony at the Hall of Fame ceremony, so she was honored. And this we talked about a couple people like this. They don't necessarily go into the Hall of Fame, but there is mention of them in the Hall of Fame. So it's pretty cool that she was the first woman to ever do this and only the fourth African American. So really, really cool. And I know she went through a lot of things in the 80s and 90s with players being a female beat writer where they didn't want to let her in the locker rooms, and she kind of fought against that. And a lot of people did not like that because it was they call it the sanctity of the locker room. But I mean, she was a beat writer, so she had every right to be in there. And I think it was Steve Garvey, I read, famously came out basically in his underwear into the hallway and said, "You're the beat writer. You have a job to do. I'm going to give you the interview," and kind of force Major League Baseball to rethink and change some of his policies. So she was a trailblazer in that. I always had mad respect for her before any of this, but she actually came and spoke at my Temple graduation from the School of Communications and Theater. Great speech, much better than that douchebag Bill Cosby did at the big graduation. My favorite part of my undergrad graduation at Temple was Claire Smith's speech in the School of Communication and Theater graduation. So thank you, Claire, for that. But today, giving her a shout out. If you can, look up some of her old writings. She's just very insightful, and like I said, like to me, it was one of those things. It did not matter that she was a woman. Like her knowledge and what she brought to the table was just amazing. So today we shout out you, Claire Smith, the Neshaminy High graduate native who went to Penn State and Temple, and just one of the best to do it. She's in the Hall of Fame, so kudos to you for setting the bar high and fighting for what we have now with all of the women who actually bring a lot to the table to the male sports. All right, speaking of women's sports and disrespect, the Villanova women take on their Sweet 16 opponent today, and instead of being like on the primetime game where like the men's are tonight, they are playing at 2:30 when they take on the Hurricanes today. And that's just a slap in the face. They are the only team in Philly. I mean, if you watch some of these women's games, they're better than some of the men. It has to be better than the UConn Arkansas game yesterday. What a snooze fest. Like, so I'm actually looking forward to this. I know last week I told you about how I had the second screen set up to watch some of the early tournament games. Totally going to do that with this game today at 2:30. Looking forward to it. So go Wildcat women today. Prove them wrong and just keep it going and represent Philly well. Sixers in action tonight against the Warriors. Big game for them. Late night. Don't know if I'm going to be up to watch it, but we'll see. Flyers won 5-4 in a shootout. Pretty much, I think they're not going to be able to get into that top five. I forget the exact standing, though. Like, they're borderline where if they do win that lottery, they're not going to be able to move up to one. So we want to make sure we lose a couple more games to get into that sweet spot where at least we have a shot. I mean, the chances are going to be stacked against us, whether or not it's fixed. Like some people accuse the NBA of fixing the lottery. That's a whole nother subject for another podcast. And finally, Eagles news. I know how I feel, but again, with the Twitter overreaction and the anger, Ezekiel Elliott had said he has his list of teams he would like to play for. He'd like to make a decision by the end of next week. Eagles were on the list, and I'll be completely honest, before they signed Rashad Penny, I would be interested in this. I don't care that he was a Cowboy, like whatever. I mean, I don't think he's going to come in and beat Ezekiel Elliott from 5 years ago, but I also don't necessarily think it would be a bad pickup. With the way the Eagles are made up right now, though, at the running back position, you got Penny and Zeke are very similar. They're the big, bruising backs. So I don't know if he's a fit on this team. But you also have Trey Lance, who's a big question mark. So, I mean, I don't know. I would take a flyer on him. I don't necessarily think that it is a bad thing to take. And not Trey Lance, by the way. That's the quarterback for the Niners. It's Trey Sermon, who was the running back for the 49ers. So I apologize. But he's coming off an injury. He's that guy, the quick, fast guy. But I just don't know. I mean, if it makes sense, I don't have a problem with it because he's a Cowboy. But again, all the hate, man. Guys, you just got to calm down. All right, I feel like I'm ranting on the Twitter hate. So let's go back. This day in Philly sports history, March 24th, 1979, and Cinderella turned back into a pumpkin on this date. The Penn Quakers got blown out by the Michigan State Spartans, 101-67 in the Final Four. Tony Price led Penn with 18 points. Michigan State was led by some guy, I forget his name. He was a sophomore. He had a triple-double. Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson basically schooled the Penn Quakers that day. 29 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. He shot 9 for 10, 11 for 12 from the free throw line. Magic. I mean, he's Magic Johnson, so he destroyed them. But for the Quakers, Tony Price was drafted by the Pistons. He was cut. He did manage to play 5 games with the Clippers, so it definitely worked out a little bit for him that way. Penn did go 25-7. They were 13-1 in the Ivy. They were the true Cinderella story. It was the only Final Four they've ever been to. They were the first 9 seed to make the Final Four. And obviously, because of the landscape of college basketball, they were the last Ivy team to make it to the Final Four. And the only team that has made it close was Cornell back in, and I forget, it was the year that, I'm pretty sure it was the year they beat Temple when they were the 12 seed. But they made it to the regional final. But on this day, the Cinderella story ended for the Penn Quakers with a 101-67 loss as Magic Johnson basically showed glimpses of what was to come in the NBA for the Lakers. So shout out to Claire Smith for setting the tone and being the trailblazer for women journalists to become beat writers and columnists, and basically forcing Major League Baseball to change the rules. Go Villanova Wildcat women. Phillies, tough one. I mean, we'll have to see how they go. It's still less than 24 hours. But be sure to check out Back to the Future to get my take on it. And just stop with the anger. Just let's everybody breathe. It's Friday. Relax, guys. No need to get angered over somebody saying Bryce Harper's ranked 58th. It's the end of the world. I'm sure Bryce Harper's not losing sleep over it. But this has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Friday. Go Villanova. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.